But you are now here, Blake,
Yes.
and you're getting here. The whole concept of getting here is a solo play in itself. You
Yes.
want to tell the story?
Yeah. First of all, just a little background. I did live here for 11 years, and Annie and I, you and I, raised our son through high school, and I got a chance to meet a lot of incredible people and work in a lot of beautiful theaters, and do almost everything I ever wanted to do in my move down here, the 11 years I lived here. But I moved away, as did Huck. We both went to Chicago for 4 years, and then I went off to Vermont for a year, and then down to New York. And while I was in New York, you and I went to the United Solo Festival and started doing our solo plays. And once we created SaraSolo, I made a point of coming down to Sarasota 2 times a year at first, and then it got to be more like 4 times a year during different seasons and some of our activity that was going on. I got a chance to have an incredible last couple of years with my mom, who was turned 100 and
Quite
passed.
remarkable woman.
Yes, yeah. And after she passed, I had some choices about where I wanted to go. One was California, the other was back to New York. But I knew that you and I could do a lot of work here together, and I had more friends here than I have anywhere.
Yeah.
And Sarasota has always been a great place for me to work and try new things, and it's a safe environment to do that. And it's always been very good for me creatively. So the adventure was that you came to stay with me, and for about 2 weeks while we were packing up the house.
Yeah, in the
Because
middle of COVID too.
yeah,
So
exactly, yeah. So this is my mom died in March, and then of course we were housebound for a couple months. The task was really not only mourning our mother, but packing up and deciding to go to a totally different place. So Annie, you came the last 2 weeks to help with the last big push,
Right.
getting us both into two separate trucks. And when my brother and his son came to help with that, we became a great team. But once our truck was filled and the house was closed to us, and the new owners beautifully took over and took the house, we drove away in a big truck with my cat jacket. Annie was always saying, why don't you move here? Why don't you move into my condo? I have an extra room. But it's all about what my plan was. After I left Vermont, it was to establish myself in some place that was really home-like. I needed to not jump into a very foreign idea of my life. I needed some comfort around landing, and that's what this condo provided. And the best thing about this is I now get to be with my company. I've heard from a couple of them who are so happy you're here now, because I can tend to day-to-day stuff that I still could before, but now it's easier to meet and easier to just get things going, and the energy's here.
So now that you're here in Sarasota in the flesh,
Right.
and you're the managing director of this program, what is the most pressing thing that you have to do now?
Well, the most pressing thing is our upcoming festival in November, which we may have come into it reluctantly as a virtual festival, but Annie and you and I are both geeking out on all things virtual. We've been doing a lot of filming anyway, and it is part of my makeup too, because I have film in my background, so there are great things that can happen with that. So I get to do things like we were looking the other day at a studio where we might be shooting, and I got to be there physically so we could see how that's set up. I'm going to be in on the shooting of them, which is a big part of this too.
Right.
But then there are all the stuff that that the patrons don't see. Setting up a wonderful ticket system and then a streaming system, and that's all the technical things that allow somebody to press a button, buy a ticket, press a button, and go right in and see a performance fully done that's filmed and very beautifully up close and very personal. So
this particular festival coming up
yeah.
is quite different
Yeah.
than just having only a live one.
Yes.
And so you're learning a lot, which is great.
Yeah.
Which means when we actually can be in front of people again, we can add that element of still videotaping and streaming and have live audiences.
Yeah, I think we will. I think we will be adept, and so we'll be doing both, because the great thing that we might learn is that we have a lot of patrons who are outside of Sarasota. Correct. We've always been limited, and I think there's something incredible about having live theater in Sarasota and having those be our patrons. But we can go beyond Sarasota, and
exactly.
I have friends in Europe who could be seeing a live streaming of something we're doing.
Finally,
we could see people, right? People in Canada, and this is a great one of the offshoots of COVID, is that we're having to solve problems and challenges that
besides solving a problem like Maria,
yeah,
right.
and because how do you solve a problem like Maria? You don't. I'm hoping we might find that we have a larger patronage, and that's exquisite to me, because I would love to reach more people.
Well, another interesting development has happened.
Yes.
One of our solo artists that we're having in the November festival has now had to back out for reasons which we totally understand.
Yes.
And so we had to fill that space.
Yes.
And what do you think's going to happen?
I don't know. It might be a very, it might become a very personal experience.
I know the answer. I think it would be great if perhaps that you could fill that spot.
Yeah.
And tell us about your piece.
I'm going to do my my piece called Lady Men, and I haven't done it in Sarasota for about 6-7 years.
Yeah.
It is, in fact, I did it in the first festival we had in 2015.
Right, and
it's been 5 years.
You had done it in the United Solo Festival and won
prior to that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I won.
Kind of did. Yeah, kind of important.
I won the best premiere for it was the second year in a row too for that award. So yeah, let's.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing about best premiere is it involves the entire company.
Exactly.
To me, I think of that. I won the year before with Annie's play that she wrote and directed me in. And they give the awards to the individual who's the performer, but the fact is my award for Trevor's Fire really had Annie on it because she was the writer and the director on it. And I think if it's a premiere, then that says something about that. And that was true the next year too. Mm-hmm. I was ecstatic. I love winning awards, and it was 2 years in a row, and I sort of claimed that. In fact, another friend won that same award a couple years later, and I said, that's my award, because they're now giving it away to other people. But the beautiful thing I get to do is perform it again. And I've grown in 5 years, so I may be looking at things a little differently, and I imagine I will be. And I'm jonesing to get back to playing it on stage. Annie and I were both slated to be in a festival in Vermont last March, and because of COVID, that festival was canceled. So I had been preparing it anyway. I think it's also cool because Annie and I are both teaching, and I also love developing other people's solo plays. It's funny to think about practicing what you preach, and I think that for me that's kind of what it is. It's a sort of a demonstration of that. But besides the fact that I get to spread the love a little bit, so.